We have a new study that was published and then went sort of viral online because it defies conventional wisdom about meat. And this won't surprise any of you, even if you maybe saw this headline in passing. It won't surprise you because we in the low-carb, zero-carb carnivore space, we all know that red meat and that fat and saturated fats are good things, that they're not bad things, that they play vital roles for human health, and that the more processed plant-based fats are usually the culprit of a lot of our problems, as well as some other things like carbohydrates and things. But this news story, of course, seems shocking if you still have any attachments to conventional ways of thinking about food. This was published in a mainstream-ish news website, the Sun, and this one is the U.S. Sun, who gives us this headline: "Fat lot of good. Fat found in butter, red meat, and eggs reduces risk of dementia by 18%. Researchers say the findings could lead to new preventative strategies for really bad disease." Now, let's be honest with ourselves here, though, okay? We have to be consistent when we talk about studies and how the media talks about studies. The headline would have been more honest if it had said may reduce the risk of dementia and not making such a conclusive, concrete statement about how red meat, butter, and eggs reduces the risk of dementia. We cannot criticize media for publishing studies that we don't like when they make these absolutist concrete statements about them, while then, like especially about plant-based diets and things like that, while then doing the same thing ourselves when the media publishes studies we do like and makes the same kinds of concrete absolutist statements for. The scientific process, I'll remind you, involves doing experiments in a laboratory setting, gathering data, publishing the data for peer review, and having other scientists in your field, whatever it is, examine what you're doing, see if your outcomes are valid, at least at a most basic procedural level, and then try to duplicate what you did themselves. That's how we gain knowledge in the scientific process. So let's bear all that in mind here, because that's what the purpose of this is. And let's also be real. Do you think anybody's going to try to duplicate the study that shows that red meat and eggs and butter are good for you in this environment? I mean, come on, let's be real. Let's be honest with ourselves. But the outcomes here are fascinating and give us at least some good talking points when talking to those people in our lives who think we're going to destroy ourselves by eating mostly, if not nothing but red meat, butter, and eggs. So here it is from the article, quote, "Fats found in butter, eggs, and red meat could lower your risk of dementia, a study suggests. Older adults with higher triglyceride levels in their blood were 18% less likely to get the deadly condition than those with half the amount. The fats also found in cooking oils are one of the main energy sources of the brain. Dr. Zhen Zhu of Monash University in Melbourne said, higher triglyceride levels may be reflective of better health and lifestyle behaviors that would protect against dementia. Our findings suggest that triglyceride levels may serve as a useful predictor for dementia risk and cognitive decline in older populations. Around 944,000 Brits are currently living with dementia, and experts predict the number will exceed 1 million by the end of the decade. Alzheimer's is the most common form of the condition and is thought to be caused by buildups of proteins in the brain, including tau and amyloid. There is currently no cure for the disease, although 3 promising drugs to slow down its progress are currently in trials. In the meantime, experts say focusing on how to improve your lifestyle is the best way to fight the disease. Triglycerides are fats found in foods and produced by the liver that move through the blood and are either used as energy or stored as body fat. Higher levels can be dangerous, increasing your risk of deadly heart disease, stroke, and pancreatitis. The latest research published in Neurology looked at how levels impact your risk of dementia. Researchers looked at data from more than 86,000 adults aged 65 and over in the UK, US, and Australia. None had dementia at the start of the study, and 2,778 had developed it after an average of 12.5 years. Higher triglyceride levels within the normal to high normal range were linked to lower dementia risk across the group. Dr. Zhu stated, future studies are needed to investigate whether specific components within triglycerides may promote better cognitive functions. These could help with developing new preventative strategies. End quote. And the doctor there does have the proper sort of scientific attitude about this. More studies are needed. More studies are needed. And that is kind of our constant lamentation in this space is a lot of the lay people in all of this have a lot of knowledge, more so than average, about food and nutrition science and health science, more so than normal people. But we can't get studies done because for ethics reasons. How do you control what everybody eats all day, every day for years at a time? How do you do that? You can't. You have to rely on self-reporting to some degree because there's ethically just obvious ethical problems with trying to control what everybody eats. But we need more studies anyway. We need the data. But there's also this problem with the corruption of the sciences. Can you see a study like this being done honestly by the big research in universities and other private research institutions? If they undermine the ability of other companies and other industries to provide you the means of curing the problems or treating the problems caused by eating junky bad food. Got to ask yourself that question. That is what's going to inhibit a lot of this. But at the very least, it gives us things we can talk about with one another and, of course, with other people. It reinforces our knowledge that at least there's a lot of circumstantial evidence and some data gathered in scientific settings that says red meat, saturated fats, butter, eggs, and the rest of it that are all part and parcel of our carnivore diets are good for us, that they help us with human flourishing. We know that, for instance, a lot of doctors now will tell their chemo patients to go on ketogenic diets. I had a friend of mine who went through chemo, successfully went through it so far, thanks be to God on that, and he was told to go ketogenic. We know that because we know that the cells they're fighting thrive on sugars. Perhaps we will see practitioners start accepting carnivore and low-carb diets in other areas besides that rather critical area that they already do. But I'm very curious what you think about this. So let me know in the comments. Do you find studies like that interesting? Do you find them being published by the news media to be also interesting? Or do you think that's really bad and that they should actually keep those articles more to elite journal publications that are behind paywalls that none of us have access to? Do you wish more mainstream media would actually talk about these kind of alternative health research that's out there being done by professionals in professional settings who are fully credentialed with all the oversight needed to make sure they're doing and conducting ethical research? I'm curious what your opinion on that is because I'm torn because a lot of times we see research like this being used for bad purposes, even by the media and by people who then make their talking points based on it. It's one of those things we need to be very aware of when we do our own advocacy. But I don't know what you think, so let me know in the comments, please. Like and subscribe if you haven't. It does help. So does sharing this on social media. That helps too. I'm Anthony Stine, the Practical Carnivore. Thanks for tuning in today.